The champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering across the marble floor at our anniversary party. Each fragment reflected the truth I had been blind to for 3 years. Frozen in the doorway, I watched my husband of 7 years kneel to comfort my best friend's crying toddler. Her next words would dismantle everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my friendships, and my life. "Daddy, can we go home now?" little Amanda whispered, her arms wrapping around my husband's neck with the ease of countless bedtime stories I had never seen. Silence filled the room as 20 guests turned toward us. My best friend Heather went pale, and Samuel, my devoted husband, looked as if he'd seen a ghost. But I was the one who felt like I had stopped breathing. Before we continue, share in the comments which country you're watching from. We love seeing where our global community joins us. And if this is your first visit, don't forget to support helps us create more powerful real-life stories. Just 3 hours earlier, I had believed I was the happiest woman alive. Our 7th wedding anniversary was everything I had envisioned: white roses, soft jazz, our closest friends and family gathered in our home. I wore the emerald dress Samuel always said was his favorite. My hair was pinned up neatly, and for the first time in months I felt radiant. Even after 7 years, I still felt butterflies whenever he looked at me. "You look stunning tonight," my sister Rebecca whispered as she helped with the dessert table. "You and Samuel still act like newlyweds." I smiled, my heart full. I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Samuel was the perfect host: charming, gracious, attentive, a successful architect, tall and striking, with warm brown eyes that had captivated me since college. Everyone admired him, and I adored him most of all. "Speech, speech," his business partner called, raising his glass. Samuel laughed, pulled me close, and addressed the room. 7 years ago, I married my best friend, my soulmate, my everything. "Teresa, you've made every day brighter just by being in it." Applause filled the room as he kissed my cheek. Tears of joy welled in my eyes. "Here's to 7 more years," he said. "And 70 beyond that." Cheers followed as glasses clinked. I leaned into him, feeling safe, loved, and complete. Heather appeared with 3-year-old Amanda on her hip. My best friend since high school looked worn out. She had raised Amanda alone ever since her partner left during her pregnancy. I had been trying to support her babysitting, groceries, whatever she needed. "This party is incredible," Heather said, bouncing Amanda. "I wanted it to be perfect," I replied, tickling Amanda's chin until she giggled. "Mama, I'm sleepy," Amanda murmured. "I know, baby. We'll go home soon," Heather comforted. "Why don't you let her nap in the guest room?" I offered. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "Don't be silly. Amanda is always welcome here." I watched her carry Amanda upstairs, my heart aching. Samuel and I had been trying for children for 2 years, but with no success. Doctors assured us nothing was wrong. It would just take time. Still, seeing Heather with Amanda reminded me of the family I longed for. The night went on with laughter and memories. Friends shared stories about Samuel and me. My parents teased me with childhood photos, and Samuel's mother gave a touching speech about how happy I made her son. By 10 p.m., guests began to leave. I was in the kitchen wrapping leftover cake when Amanda's cries drifted down from the guest room. "I'll check on her," Samuel called, already heading upstairs. I continued tidying, humming to myself, thinking of how perfect the evening had been. I was already imagining our 10th anniversary celebration. Then came footsteps, Samuel. Steady tread, followed by lighter ones. Heather must have gone up to get Amanda. Smiling, I walked toward the dining room, ready to say goodbye, and then my world collapsed. Amanda reached for Samuel, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, can we go home now?" The word struck me like a physical blow. "Daddy, not Uncle Samuel, not Mama's friend. Daddy." The room froze as glass shattered at my feet. My champagne flute lay in pieces, but I barely noticed the cuts on my ankles. All I could feel was the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. Samuel's face turned pale. Heather looked ready to collapse. Amanda kept crying, too young to understand the sudden tension. Teresa, Samuel's voice trembled, but his words were drowned out by the roar in my ears. Amanda was 3 years old. 3. That meant she was conceived 4 years ago. Back when Samuel and I weren't yet trying for children. 4 years ago, when Samuel claimed he was going through a quarter-life crisis, he had been moody, distant, always needing space. That was when he started working late, going out more often when he had been with my best friend. Get out. The words slipped out as a whisper, but they cut through the silence. Teresa, please, let me explain. He stepped toward me. Get out. My voice broke as I screamed. All of you out of my house. The guests scattered. My sister tried to approach, but I raised a shaking hand. Not you, Rebecca. Everyone else. Now. Samuel hesitated, but Heather pulled his arm. We should go, she whispered. Together, they left, my husband and my best friend, carrying the child that revealed years of betrayal. I stood alone in the dining room, surrounded by the ruins of what I thought was a perfect marriage. Something cold and sharp settled inside me. They believed they could deceive me, forever smiling, pretending to be my family while I played the loyal wife and trusting friend. But they had underestimated me. As I swept shards of glass with trembling hands, my mind was already working, planning, calculating. If they wanted to dismantle my life, fine. But I would make sure they paid for every lie, every betrayal, every stolen moment of happiness. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The house felt empty, almost like a tomb. I sat on the living room floor in my anniversary dress, surrounded by wine glasses and crumpled napkins, trying to absorb what had just unfolded. Amanda's words echoed in my head like a broken record. Daddy. With shaking hands, I opened my phone gallery. Hundreds of photos filled the screen. Family gatherings, birthdays, dinners where Heather and Amanda had joined us. I scrolled through them with new eyes, spotting what I had missed before. Samuel's hand resting on Heather's shoulder at Amanda's second birthday. His smile as he helped Amanda blow out candles. The way he seemed to anticipate her needs before Heather even asked. How had I been so blind? My phone buzzed. Samuel's text. Please let me come home. We need to talk. Home. He still called this home, but he had built another one with Heather and Amanda, with his real family. I typed back, don't. I need time to think. Another buzz. I love you, Teresa. Please don't give up on us. I almost laughed. He loved me enough to build a secret life for years. Loved me enough to let me believe I was his entire world while he created another behind my back. I turned off my phone and walked upstairs. Everything looked the same. Our wedding photo on the nightstand, his clothes in the closet, the book he had been reading on his side of the bed, but it all felt staged, like props in a play I had been unknowingly cast in. I opened his nightstand drawer, looking for what? Proof, evidence. Inside were his passport, old receipts, and a small velvet box I'd never noticed before. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. A delicate silver bracelet lay inside, with a tiny charm. It was a child's bracelet, Amanda's bracelet. The receipt was still tucked inside, purchased 3 months ago from an upscale jewelry store downtown. That was the same week Samuel had told me he was busy working late on a big project. I sank onto the bed, clutching the bracelet, while I had been planning our anniversary celebration. He had been buying gifts for his daughter, while I had been dreaming of the children we might one day have. He had been living a double life. The tears came hot, angry, unrelenting. I wept for the marriage I thought I had, for the friend I thought I could trust, and for the naive woman who still believed in happily ever after. But beneath the grief, something else was rising, cold, calculated, furious. They had deceived me for years, looking me in the eye while hiding the truth. They let me babysit their child, deliver groceries, and offer emotional support to Heather, as a so-called single mother. The betrayal cut deep, but the humiliation burned worse. How many people already knew? How many of our friends had been in on the secret? Had they laughed at me behind my back? I thought about every cancelled plan, every late-night work emergency, every weekend Samuel supposedly spent helping Heather around her apartment. He wasn't fixing leaky faucets, he was playing house with his hidden family. My phone buzzed. This time it was Heather. Teresa, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way. Can we please talk? I stared at her message, recalling every time she'd cried on my shoulder about being alone. Every time she'd thanked me for always being there for her and Amanda. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd been caught. I typed back, there's nothing to talk about. You made your choice 3 years ago. Her reply came instantly. It's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated. As if there were any version of this story where they weren't the liars and I wasn't the victim. But I was finished being the victim. I walked into my home office, opened my laptop, and began to plan. If they wanted to play games, I could play too, but I would play to win. Samuel was a respected architect with a reputation to protect. Heather worked in marketing for a family-friendly nonprofit. They had built careful images as moral, trustworthy people. But what would happen if those facades collapsed? I began, making lists: Samuel's clients, business partners, professional associations, Heather's co-workers, her boss, her nonprofit's board members, our mutual friends, our families, everyone who needed to know the truth. But I couldn't act recklessly. If I wanted to bring them down, I needed undeniable proof. I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it Project Payback. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, coffee gone cold, planning every step. The first step was evidence: clear, irrefutable proof of their affair and Amanda's parentage. Without that, it would just be my word against theirs, and they could dismiss me as jealous or unstable. At 6 a.m., I called my lawyer, Mildred Bennett, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had handled our house purchase and wills. Teresa, it's very early. Is everything okay? I need to see you today. It's urgent, of course. Can you be here at 9? Her downtown office smelled of dark wood and leather. She took one look at me, poured a cup of strong coffee, and said simply, "Tell me everything." I laid it all out: the anniversary party, Amanda's words, the years of lies. Mildred listened, in silence, taking notes in her precise handwriting. "I want a divorce," I concluded, "and I don't want Samuel to get a cent more than he's entitled to." Mildred leaned back, thoughtful. "First, we need to establish paternity. Without that, this is speculation." "How do we do that?" "A DNA test. But we'll need a sample from Amanda, and that won't be easy if Heather refuses to cooperate." I thought quickly. What if I took something with Amanda's DNA? A cup, a toy. Possible, Mildred admitted, but the chain of custody would be questionable. "It's better if this is done officially." She tapped her pen against her. "No, but there's another matter. If Samuel is Amanda's father, he's avoided child support for 3 years. That carries serious legal consequences." A sharp sense of satisfaction stirred inside me. What kind of consequences? Wage garnishment, asset seizure, maybe even jail depending on the debt. And if he deliberately hid his paternity to avoid support, that was fraud. "Good," I said, and I meant it. Mildred lifted an eyebrow. "Teresa, I know you're upset, but we need to be careful. If you appear vindictive, it could hurt your case in divorce court." "I'm not vindictive," I answered. "Evenly, I'm thorough." Leaving Mildred's office, I drove to Samuel's architectural firm. I'd been there many times before: company parties, lunch visits, dinner pickups. The receptionist, Monica, recognized me instantly. "Mrs. Giovanni, what a nice surprise. Samuel's in a meeting, but I'm here to see you," I said with a bright smile. "I'm planning a surprise birthday party for Samuel next month and need to check his schedule." Her face lit up. "How wonderful. He's lucky to have you." If only she knew. "Could you print out his calendar for the last few months? I want to avoid any client deadlines." "Of course," she replied, pulling it up. "Actually, could you go back to last year? I'd like to see the pattern of his busy seasons." As Monica printed stacks of his neatly documented schedule, I felt like an investigator collecting evidence. Every late night, every business trip, every weekend meeting would be examined. "Here you go," she said, handing me a thick pile of papers. "Thank you," I replied smoothly. "The party will be unforgettable." Next, I drove to Heather's apartment complex. I'd been there before, but now it looked different, too nice for someone working in a nonprofit without child support. Parking across the street, I waited. At 11:30, Heather appeared with Amanda. I followed them to a pediatrician's office. While they went inside, I called from my cell phone. "Hi, this is Amanda's aunt," I said in a slightly altered voice. "I'm updating family records. Could you confirm Amanda's father's name for insurance?" "I'm sorry, I can't release patient information," the receptionist replied. "Of course, I understand. Could you at least confirm if the father's name begins with an S?" A pause. "Ma'am, you'll need identification and authorization from the child's mother." I hung up, frustrated but medical records were well protected. I'd need another approach. I trailed them from the clinic to a small park. Amanda rushed to the playground, while Heather sat on a bench, looking worn out. From my car, I studied the girl, the way she moved, her mannerisms. She had Samuel's eyes. How had I not noticed before? My phone rang. Samuel's name appeared. I let it go to voicemail. His message followed. Teresa, please. I know you're angry, and you should be, but we need to talk like adults. I'm coming home tonight whether you want me to or not. This is my house too. His house, our house, the one we bought with dreams of raising children he had already fathered elsewhere. That afternoon, I dug through our financial records, bank statements, credit cards, investments. Mildred was right. I had to be methodical. What I found made my blood boil. Cash withdrawals on Amanda's birthday and Christmas. Charges at toy stores and kids' clothing shops he had brushed off as gifts for colleagues' children. A recurring payment to Sunshine Daycare, never questioned, because Samuel handled most of our finances. He had funded his secret family with our joint money, the account my salary also supported. I printed everything, organizing it into neat folders, evidence of financial betrayal, proof of his double life. At 6 o'clock, I heard the front door. Samuel walked in looking worn and shaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. Teresa, he said softly, thank you for letting me come home. This isn't your home anymore, I replied, not looking up from the papers. You're just here to collect your things. He sat across from me, reaching for my hand. I pulled it back. Please, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been unfaithful for years. That you have a daughter I never knew about. That you've been using our joint account to support another family. Samuel flinched. It's not stealing. It's my money too. Is it? I finally looked at him, and he recoiled from the expression on my face. Because I've been doing some calculations, Samuel. Very interesting ones. I slid a paper across the table. This is the total you've spent on Amanda and Heather over the past 3 years: daycare, clothing, toys, medical bills, groceries. Want to guess the amount? He glanced at the page and went pale. $47,000. Money from our joint account. Money I helped earn. Money you used on your hidden family while telling me we needed to cut back for our future children. Teresa, I'm not finished, I said calmly. I also found the receipt for the bracelet you bought Amanda, the same week you told me we couldn't afford a vacation because work was slow. Samuel buried his face in his hands. I never wanted it to be like this. Which part? I asked sharply. The affair, the pregnancy, the lies for 4 years, or simply getting caught. All of it, he whispered. I love you, Teresa. I've always loved you. I laughed, bitter even to my own ears. You have a strange way of showing it. It started as a mistake, he said desperately. Heather and I were both struggling. You and I argued about children, and she was alone after her breakup. It was supposed to be just one night, but it wasn't. No, I replied. When she told me she was pregnant, he continued, eyes pleading, I wanted to end it, but Amanda, she's my daughter. I couldn't walk away from her. So instead, you walked away from me. I never left you. I stayed. I chose you. You chose to lie to me, I corrected. You let me believe I was your wife, when really I was just your cover. You let me babysit your daughter while pretending to be her aunt. You let me support my best friend through single motherhood when you were the father the whole time. I'm sorry, he choked out. I know I don't deserve it, but please can you forgive me? Can we try to fix this? I stared at him. This man I'd loved for 7 years. This man I'd trusted with my heart, my future, my dreams. No, I said simply. Teresa, please, I want you out of this house by tomorrow night. Take your things, but nothing of mine. I've already changed the locks on my office and the safe. You can't just throw me out. This is my house too. Actually, I slid another paper across the table. I spoke to Mildred today. Did you know adultery impacts property division in this state? Especially when financial dishonesty is involved? Samuel's face drained of color. You're divorcing me. I'm ending you, I corrected. There's a difference. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. This isn't you, Teresa. You're not vengeful. You're kind, forgiving, and foolish. Foolish enough to believe your lies for 4 years. I gathered my papers. But not anymore. What are you going to do? He asked. I smiled coldly. Make sure everyone knows who you really are. Your clients, your partners, your family, everyone who thinks you're an honest man. You'll destroy my career. You should have thought of that before. You destroyed my life. I started for the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Samuel, you might want to call a lawyer. When the state learns you've been avoiding child support for 3 years, you're going to need one. I left him sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by proof of his betrayal, and went upstairs to pack his bags. The battle had officially started. Samuel was gone the next evening, just as I demanded. He packed his things with the air of a man who knew he'd lost everything. I watched from the upstairs window as he loaded his car, feeling only cold satisfaction. He tried once more, standing in the doorway with tears in his eyes. I know you hate me now, but one day, when you're not so angry, maybe you'll remember that we were happy once, that I did love you. The only thing I'll remember, I replied, is that you're a liar and a cheat. Everything else was just an act. Now the house was mine again. Quiet, clean, and free of his presence. I walked through the rooms, reclaiming my space, planning my next steps. Mildred had already filed the divorce papers that morning. Samuel would be served tomorrow at his office in front of colleagues and clients, just as I requested. But the divorce was only the beginning. I had spent the day making phone calls, sending emails, and setting in motion the steps that would lead to Samuel's professional downfall. It was surprising how quickly people turned once they learned the truth about someone they thought they could trust. My first call was to Samuel's biggest client, Giovanni Development Corporation. The irony of the name wasn't lost on me. They were building a family resort, while their lead architect had been hiding his own family for years. Mr. Giovanni, I told the company president, I think you should know that my husband Samuel has been living a double life. He has a 3-year-old daughter he has never acknowledged publicly, and he has been using company resources to support this hidden family. The silence on the other end was telling. These are very serious accusations. He finally said, I have documentation, I assured him. Bank records, receipts, photographs. I thought you'd want to know before this becomes public. By the end of the day, Giovanni Development had called an emergency meeting to review Samuel's contract. My second call went to the state's Child Support Enforcement Agency. I gave them Amanda's full name and Samuel's details. They confirmed that an investigation would start right away. If paternity is established and he has been avoiding support obligations, the caseworker explained, we can pursue back support with interest and penalties. We can also garnish wages and seize assets. How long does that usually take? I asked. Once we have DNA confirmation, the process moves quickly. The state doesn't tolerate unpaid support. Perfect. My third call was to Heather's boss at the nonprofit. I was more careful there, expressing concern about Heather's situation and whether it might affect her ability to represent an organization dedicated to family values. I just think you should be aware, I said cautiously, that Heather has been involved in a long-term affair with a married man. I'm not sure that aligns with your organization's mission. The conversation was short, but I could hear the unease in her boss's voice. Nonprofits live or die by their reputations, and any hint of scandal can cost them donors and funding. With those calls made, I prepared for phase 2. I invited our entire social circle to a dinner party that weekend, all the friends who had been at our anniversary celebration, plus a few more. The invitation was carefully worded. Join me for an intimate dinner party as I share important news about recent changes in my life. Your friendship and support mean everything during this difficult time. Everyone accepted, eager to help. None of them knew they were about to witness Samuel and Heather's public downfall. On Thursday, I went shopping for the dinner party, planning the menu with the same attention I once gave our anniversary celebration. But this time, I wasn't honoring love. I was preparing to serve justice. By Friday morning, the first results of my actions came through. Samuel called, his voice trembling with anger. What did you do? Giovanni Development just fired me. I told them the truth, I replied evenly. They deserved to know the kind of man they were employing. You destroyed my career. That was my biggest client. You destroyed your career when you chose to live a double life, and, not just that, when you slept with my best friend. I only made sure the truth came out. Please, Teresa, I have a daughter to support now. I need that job. The irony wasn't lost on me. You should have thought about supporting your daughter 3 years ago. Don't worry, the state will make sure you do now. Job or no job. I hung up on his protests and immediately called Mildred, my attorney. Samuel's been fired from his biggest client, I told her. How does that affect the divorce? It could help your case, she said. If his income drops, he'll have less leverage over assets. And if he can't pay support, the state will pursue him even harder. Good. What about the DNA test? I filed a motion to compel, with the enforcement agency involved. I expect we'll get it. Everything was falling into place. That afternoon, my sister Rebecca called Dreza. I just heard about Samuel. Are you okay? The news was spreading exactly as I intended. I'm better than okay. I told her, I'm free. I can't believe he did this. And with Heather, honestly, I never liked her. Something about her always felt fake. I almost smiled. Rebecca had never said that before, but people rewrite history quickly when scandals break. Will you come to my dinner party tomorrow? I asked. I want to tell everyone at once. Of course. Do you need anything? Just bring your appetite for drama. Saturday evening arrived, crisp and clear. I spent the day cooking Samuel's favorite meal, chosen with deliberate irony. It would be his final supper in our social circle, and I intended to make it unforgettable. By 7 o'clock, the guests began to arrive. Rebecca and her husband Tom, our college friends Marcus and Jennifer, Samuel's business partner, David and his wife Susan, my colleague Grace, and several others filled the room. Noticeably absent were Samuel and Heather, though I hadn't expected them to appear. Where's Samuel? Jennifer asked as I handed her a cocktail. Is he working late again? Samuel won't be joining us, I replied with a measured smile. I'll explain everything over dinner. The atmosphere stayed light at first. Everyone was curious about my announcement but too polite to press. They complimented the food, asked about work, and exchanged updates on mutual friends. I waited until dessert before sharing the real reason for the gathering. Thank you all for coming tonight, I began, standing at the head of the table. Your friendship has meant so much to me over the years, which is why I wanted you to hear this directly from me. The table grew silent. Everyone leaned in, waiting. Samuel and I are getting divorced. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. I know this comes as a shock. I continued, it shocked me too when I discovered that my husband of 7 years has been in an affair with my best friend Heather for years. Jennifer's glass hit the table with a sharp clink. David's face drained of color. But that isn't the worst part, I said, keeping my voice steady. The real shock is that they have a 3-year-old daughter together, the little girl I've been babysitting, buying gifts for, and treating like family. She's actually Samuel's child. The silence was heavy. I could see everyone processing the times they'd seen Samuel with Amanda, remembering how he played the doting uncle at gatherings. I found out at our anniversary party, I explained. Amanda called Samuel daddy in front of everyone. It turns out a 3-year-old can't keep secrets forever. Rebecca was crying quietly. Grace looked furious. David stared at his plate. I wanted you to know because Samuel will likely try to twist this, I added. He'll excuse it as a mistake, downplay the truth. But I have evidence, bank records showing he supported them with our money, receipts for gifts he bought Amanda while telling me we couldn't afford things, and documentation of lies going back years. Marcus finally spoke. Teresa, so sorry, we had no idea. Of course you didn't, I said. They were careful, discreet, and very skilled at making me look blind to what was happening in my own marriage. I sat back down, took a sip of wine, and said calmly, I just wanted you to know the truth before rumors start spreading. Samuel has already been fired from Giovanni Development. The state is pursuing him for back child support, and I'm taking him for everything he's worth in the divorce. Good, Grace said firmly. He deserves every bit of it. The rest of the evening was filled with discussion of Samuel and Heather's betrayal. My friends supported me, shared their anger, and promised to cut ties with them. By the time everyone left, their social standing was already collapsing. Word would spread quickly, and they'd become outcasts, talked about but avoided. As I cleared the dishes, a sense of satisfaction settled in. Samuel thought losing his job was the worst of it, but he had no idea how much more was coming. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're destroying innocent people. Amanda doesn't deserve this. It was Heather. She must have changed her number to avoid the fallout. I typed back, Amanda deserves a father who isn't a liar. You should have thought of that before sleeping with my husband. Her reply came fast. Samuel loves you. He made a mistake. Don't destroy him over one mistake. One mistake. 4 years of lies and betrayal. I wrote back, watch me. Then I blocked her number and went to bed, already planning my next steps. This was far from finished. The next morning, news arrived that made my coffee taste like victory. Mildred called with an update that finally made me smile. The DNA test has been fast-tracked, she said. Samuel's lawyer told him to comply rather than resist. Fighting it would only lead to a court order. How soon will we have results? I asked. 72 hours. But there's more. The Child Support Enforcement Agency moved faster than expected. They've already frozen his bank accounts pending results. I set my coffee cup down slowly, savoring the words, all of them. I asked. Every account they could find, she confirmed. And they've placed a lien on his car. If the DNA confirms what we know, they'll pursue him for 3 years of back support plus penalties. We're talking about a 6-figure debt. Samuel's financial downfall was happening faster than I expected, but my work wasn't over yet. That afternoon, I drove to Amanda's daycare, the same Sunshine daycare Samuel had been secretly funding. I had already called ahead, posing as a concerned relative. I'm Amanda's aunt. I told the director, a kind woman in her 50s. I'm helping update the family paperwork. Could you confirm who's listed as Amanda's father? The director hesitated. I'm sorry, I can only share that information with the parents. Of course, I understand, I said, pausing before adding casually. I just want to make sure everything's in order before the custody hearing. Her eyes widened slightly. Custody hearing. You haven't heard, Amanda's parents are dealing with some legal issues. I'm only trying to help sort things out. I sighed, as if exhausted. It's always sad when families fall apart. I left the daycare certain that by evening the staff would be discussing Amanda's situation, and soon other parents would hear. It was another circle of people who now knew the truth about Samuel and Heather. By Tuesday, it was time for the social media phase of my plan. I avoided posting anything that seemed bitter or vengeful. Instead, I liked and commented on updates from friends who had attended my dinner party. When Jennifer posted, "Shocked by people you thought you knew," I replied, "Sometimes the closest people hide the deepest secrets. Thank you for your support in this difficult time." When Gray shared an article on infidelity statistics, I added, "So true. The betrayal is painful enough, but the lies are what truly destroy trust." Each comment was written to appear appreciative and combat. They kept the story alive, ensuring Samuel and Heather's reputations continued to crumble. On Wednesday morning, Mildred called with the results I had been waiting for. DNA results are in. Samuel is definitely Amanda's father. The Child Support Agency is moving to garnish his wages and seize his assets. What about his partnership with David? I asked. That's where it gets interesting. David's been calling me all morning. Apparently, their business contract includes a morality clause. David wants Samuel out, but he's unsure of the legal consequences. I smiled. Samuel and David had built their architecture. Firm together over 5 years, it was Samuel's main source of income. What did you tell him? That he should get his own lawyer. But honestly, Samuel is about to lose more than his marriage. That afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor. Heather stood at my door, looking exhausted and desperate. Amanda wasn't with her. "We need to talk," she said. I considered shutting the door but allowed her 5 minutes. She sat nervously on the couch where she had so often sat as my friend. "You have to stop this," she began quickly. "Samuel's lost his job. His accounts are frozen. David wants to dissolve their partnership. You're destroying him." "I'm not destroying him," I answered evenly. "I'm just making sure people see him for who he is. Amanda needs her father. If you ruin him completely, how will he support her?" The irony was striking. Amanda needed her father 3 years ago. Where was your concern then? Heather's eyes filled with tears. "I know we hurt you. I know what we did was wrong, but Amanda is innocent in all this." "You're right. Amanda is innocent, which is why she deserves better than parents who lie and cheat." Heather's voice broke. "Samuel wanted to leave his wife for me. He was going to tell you after your anniversary. We had it planned. He loves me, Teresa. He loves Amanda. He only stayed with you because he felt guilty." The words stung, but I kept my face neutral. If that's true, then I did him a favor. Now he's free to be with you, without guilt. Heather's face crumpled. "You don't understand. My job is at risk. People are talking. The daycare is asking questions. You're not just hurting Samuel, you're hurting us too." "Good," I said simply. She looked at me as if I had struck her. "This isn't you, Teresa. You're not cruel." "You're right," I said. The old Teresa wasn't cruel. The old Teresa was trusting, naive, foolish enough to believe her best friend and husband were good people. But that Teresa is gone. I stood, signaling the end of the conversation. "You have 2 minutes left." Heather rose too, her voice rising in desperation. What do you want? Money. An apology. What will it take for you to stop this? She asked. I want you to suffer, I replied calmly. I want you to lose everything, just as I did. I want you to know what it feels like to have your life destroyed by those you trusted. We never meant to get out. My voice was cold, and don't come back. After she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in the garden, reflecting on her words. Samuel had already been planning to leave me. Their betrayal wasn't only about desire or even affection, it was about replacing me completely. That realization should have cut deeper, but instead, it only strengthened my resolve to see this through. Thursday brought the final trigger. David called me directly, something he had never done before. Teresa, I hate to bother you, but I need to ask about Samuel. What do you want to know? Has he been using company funds for personal expenses? I've noticed irregularities in the books. I smiled to myself. Samuel had been careless with his finances, blurring personal and business accounts. I can't say for certain. David, you'd have to ask him. I'm asking you because Samuel's not exactly reliable right now, David admitted, his tone strained. If you suspect embezzlement, I'd recommend hiring a forensic accountant, I suggested. They're very effective at uncovering financial misconduct. When I hung up, satisfaction settled in. Samuel hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd betrayed his business partner too. David would uncover the truth, and Samuel would face not only personal ruin, but criminal charges as well. By Friday afternoon, Mildred called with the final update. It's over, she said. Samuel has agreed to all terms. He keeps his clothes and personal belongings. You get the house, the investments, and the majority of liquid assets. He'll also pay spousal support for 3 years. And his business? I asked. David's buying him out for almost nothing. Samuel needs cash to cover legal fees and back child support. He's essentially starting over with nothing. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight finally lift. And Heather, she lost her job yesterday. The nonprofit's board decided she wasn't aligned with their family values mission. Perfect. That evening, I sat in my house. No one opened a bottle of champagne, not to celebrate love, but to celebrate justice. My phone buzzed. A final message from Samuel. I hope you're happy now. I typed back, I'm getting there. Then I blocked his number and erased every photo of him from my phone. The next morning, sunlight filled my office as I wrapped up my latest project. I had launched a consulting business helping women navigate divorce, and it was thriving. Many needed someone who truly understood betrayal and how to fight back. The doorbell rang. A delivery man stood there holding a bouquet. Teresa Giovanni. That's me. The card was from a new client, a woman whose husband had been draining their joint business funds to fuel his gambling habit. Thank you for helping me get my life back, it read. I arranged the flowers in a vase, smiling. Helping women reclaim their power had become my passion. Each case was different, but watching cheaters face consequences never lost its impact. My phone rang. Mildred's name appeared. Good news, she said without hesitation. Samuel's been sentenced to 6 months in jail for embezzlement. David's testimony was especially damaging, and Heather, still unemployed, she's moved back in with her parents. Samuel's child support payments barely cover Amanda's basics. For a brief moment, I felt something like sympathy for Amanda, but it passed quickly. She was better off knowing the truth than growing up in lies. There's one more thing, Mildred added. Samuel's lawyer reached out. He wants to know if you'd write a character reference for the sentencing hearing. I laughed, truly laughed. What did you say? That you'd think about it for $50,000 paid up front. Unsurprisingly, they refused. After ending the call, I walked through my home, taking in the changes I'd made. New furniture, fresh paint, and family photos where Samuel's face no longer appeared. This space was finally mine, no longer built on lies, but on truth. The old Teresa might have felt guilty about Samuel's downfall. She would have questioned whether she had gone too far, acted too harshly, or destroyed too much. But that Teresa had been naive, believing in fairy tales, happy endings, and the goodness of people who hadn't earned her trust. The new Teresa understood better. Sometimes justice isn't given, it has to be taken, and those who ruin lives deserve to watch their own fall apart in return. My phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. Lunch today. I have news about you no who. I quickly replied. Can't wait. The network of contacts I'd built was still feeding me updates about Samuel and Heather's decline. Call it petty if you will, but but I had earned the right to know. As I prepared for lunch, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I was different, now stronger, sharper, more assured. The woman who once planned that anniversary party was gone, replaced by someone who knew her own value and wouldn't allow anyone to diminish it. Some might say my actions were cruel, even vengeful, that I had lowered myself, but those people had never been betrayed by the two they trusted most. They had never discovered their life was built on lies, or felt the crushing weight of realizing they'd been fooled by people who claimed to love them. I had no regrets. Samuel and Heather made their choices, and they were living with the outcome just as I was living with mine. The difference was simple. My consequences brought freedom, financial security, and the satisfaction of justice served. Theirs meant poverty, exile, and the painful knowledge that their betrayal hadn't just ruined my life, but theirs too. Locking my door and stepping out, I smiled. It was a bright day, and I had a bright future. My life now rested on truth, strength, and justice, not lies, weakness, and blind faith. The old Teresa might have forgiven them, might have tried to move forward without tearing them down, but she no longer existed, and I was better for it. The battle was over, and I had won completely. Samuel and Heather had lost everything: their reputations, their jobs, their stability, and their place in the community we once shared. Meanwhile, I had grown stronger, wealthier, and wiser. I'd learned that sometimes real justice isn't just moving on, it's ensuring those who hurt you pay in full. As I drove to the restaurant, I thought about Amanda. She was, for now, old enough to start asking questions. Why Daddy lived somewhere else, why Mommy was always upset, why they had to move in with grandparents. One day she would learn the truth, that her parents' selfishness and lies destroyed multiple lives, and she would understand. Choices carry consequences. Betrayal has a cost, and not everyone stays silent when wronged. It would be an important lesson, because the truth always comes out, and when it does, those who lived in lies have nowhere left to hide. I had made certain of that. The game was over and I had won every round.